I've noticed something pretty strange after years of watching how people make money, hold on to money, and stress about money. It's this. There are moments when your account balance clearly goes up, but how you feel on the inside doesn't change at all. You look at the number. You know you're better off than before, but you don't feel lighter. You don't feel calmer, and you definitely don't feel much freer. What's interesting is that this feeling has very little to do with how much money you have and everything to do with the role money is playing in your life. Most people don't realize this. Money doesn't upgrade your life in a straight line. It upgrades your life in very specific psychological thresholds. And if you use the wrong strategy at the wrong threshold, you end up feeling like you're doing everything right, but somehow not getting anywhere. That's what I want to talk about today. Not to flex numbers, but to help you understand why your relationship with money changes or doesn't change at different stages. Idea 1. When money is still mental noise, your brain can't think long-term. I've realized that early in the financial journey, money isn't a tool yet. Money is a constant warning signal. You might not be poor in an absolute sense. You're paying rent, you're eating, your phone bill is covered. But all it takes is one message. Your car needs repairs, a medical bill shows up, a family member needs help, and your entire brain switches into reaction mode. In this state, every money decision is emotional. Not because you're weak, but because your brain is prioritizing survival, not optimization. What most people don't notice is this. When money is still mentally noisy, you tend to rush into opportunities, become overly sensitive to risk, get pulled toward promises of fast results. Not because you're greedy, but because your brain is looking for an exit, not a long road. I've seen so many people at this stage doing things that sound advanced. Opening investment accounts, studying complex financial strategies, talking about financial freedom. But internally, they're still stretched tight. The problem isn't knowledge. The problem is that you're using the mindset of someone without a safety zone to play the game of someone who already has a buffer. At this level, what changes your life isn't returns. It's quiet in your head. When money stops startling you, that's when your brain finally starts thinking ahead. Idea 2. When money can delay fear, your behavior changes completely. I've noticed a very subtle shift in people, one they rarely know how to name. It's the moment when money hasn't made you free yet, but it has given you the ability to delay fear. That sounds small. Psychologically, it's huge. Before this point, when something goes wrong, you have to react immediately. Need cash, borrow short, cut aggressively anxious, make a quick decision just to end the stress. But then, once you build a modest buffer, a new option appears. One that didn't exist before. You can wait a day, wait a week, wait long enough to think clearly. And here's the interesting part. That ability to wait completely changes the quality of your financial decisions. I've seen people at this stage start to not buy instantly just because something's on sale, not jump into opportunities out of fear of missing out, stop choosing the cheapest option at all costs, not because they're rich, but because they're no longer trapped in a corner. But right here, a new trap shows up. Most people don't realize this. When money starts making life feel a little easier, the brain quickly translates that into, finally, I deserve to loosen up. And then, spending quietly expands just a little more purchases, become frequent money, still comes in, but never piles up enough to create the next leap. I don't think that's wrong. Humans need to feel alive, not just survive. The real issue is this. Many people spend all of that breathing room on the present and leave none of it for the future. So they get stuck in a long in-between state, no longer struggling, but not really moving forward, constantly feeling like I should be further by now. At this level, money starts asking a new question. Not, do you have enough? But, how are you allocating this sense of ease? And the answer to that question determines whether you stall or move on. Doi jai la ban dich sang tieng an, guva noi tun hien, jung chat nguoi mai, jong quan sat, jam tin, hu tien, hong len lop. Idea 3. When money starts making money, your emotions actually get more fragile. I've noticed a really interesting paradox after watching people who've made it pretty far financially. The more money they have working for them, the more emotionally sensitive they become. Earlier on, money mostly reflects your effort. You work harder, stay disciplined, and the balance goes up. But at some point, the number starts moving even when you don't do anything at all. And that completely changes your psychological relationship with money. I've seen a lot of people experience this for the first time. They didn't do anything wrong, but their money still went down. Everything in life is fine. But the numbers drop and the brain immediately asks, "Did I just lose something?" Most people don't realize this. The human brain hates uncertainty more than it hates risk. When money goes up and down without being tied to a specific action, the brain struggles to tell the difference between normal movement and real danger. That's when emotions step in. You start to check your accounts more often, react strongly to news second-guess decisions that were perfectly reasonable before. The ironic part is this. At this stage, the more you interfere, the worse the results usually get. What I've realized is that the people who keep moving forward aren't the ones who predict the market correctly. They're the ones who build distance between emotion and action. They don't ignore risk. They just don't let every small fluctuation pull them off a long-term plan. The biggest problem at this level isn't lack of knowledge. It's overestimating how much short-term movements actually matter. One small decision made at the wrong moment can wipe out years of patient progress. So when money starts making money, the most important question is no longer, how do I make more? It becomes, how do I avoid becoming the person who sabotages my own plan? Idea 4. When you can see the future through money, every expense changes, meaning I've realized that at a certain stage, money stops being just a tool for solving today's problems. It starts acting like a lens that lets you see your future self more clearly. Before that, spending money feels simple. Buy or don't buy, afford it or not. But at this level, every expense carries an extra layer of meaning. Not because you're stingier, but because you're more aware of the real cost of convenience. I've seen many people start to feel this when they sign long-term commitments, multi-year payment plans, fixed monthly costs that are hard-to-cut lifestyles that would be painful to roll back. What's interesting is this. The tension doesn't come from not having enough money. It comes from realizing you've quietly locked away future options. Most people don't notice this. Money isn't usually threatened by one big purchase. It's threatened by recurring obligations. A small but fixed expense can limit your future flexibility far more than a large one-time cost. At this level, the question in your head changes. It's no longer, can I afford this? It becomes, if I keep paying for this for years, what am I giving up? And this is where people clearly split. Some see stability as safety. Others start realizing that too much stability makes it harder to move. The people who go further don't cut all spending. They're just more careful with things that increase fixed costs, make it harder to change direction when opportunity shows up. At this stage, money teaches a quiet lesson. Freedom doesn't disappear because you're poor. It disappears because you committed too early. Idea 5. When money stops being the goal, it becomes a filter for life. I've realized that at the highest level of money behavior, the change isn't in the numbers anymore. It's in how you see the world through money. Before, money asks you, is it enough? Is it safe? Can I take on more risk? But eventually, money asks a completely different question. Does this fit the life you want to keep living? This is the stage where, from the outside, people think you've already made it. But internally, this is the stage that requires the most subtle discipline. Most people don't realize this. The further you go, the less money rewards intelligence, and the more it punishes carelessness. I've seen people who are great at making money, deeply understand investing, and still make life harder for themselves, not because they lack knowledge, but because they start believing they can bend the rules. At this level, risk doesn't come from not having enough money. It comes from concentrating too heavily in one direction, trusting one judgment too much, getting too relaxed with things that are just a little more. What's interesting is this. People who are truly financially solid don't talk much about making more money. They talk more about keeping life simple, keeping expenses flexible, keeping decisions unforced. Money is no longer the engine. It becomes a guardrail. It protects you from rushed decisions, commitments that trap you, and even the ego that wants to prove it's right. At this stage, wealth is no longer measured by how much do you have, but by how many things can you say no to and still feel okay. I want you to remember this. Financial milestones aren't trophies, they're psychological thresholds. Each threshold demands a different way of thinking. And if you use old thinking in a new stage, you'll always feel like you're trying really hard, without feeling any lighter. If you look at your money today and it hasn't brought the feeling you expected, that doesn't mean you failed. You might just be standing at a new threshold and need a new perspective. If this kind of analysis helps you understand yourself better, hit like on the video and subscribe to the channel. I'll keep talking about the psychology of money, not to make you rich fast, but to help you go far without getting in your own way.